Ordering fractions and decimals. What do you need to know first? The first thing you need to know is ordering decimals. So let's say they gave you something like this. All right, the easiest way that I know how to do this is by evening all the decimals out. And I would rewrite them top over bottom. So some people learn it where you look at this row and then you look at this row. That's okay. But the easiest thing that I've seen is just to even all the numbers out with zeros. So I added 2 there, 1 there, and 1 there to make them all 3 long. Once you do that, you can ignore the decimals and you can just look at the numbers. Okay, what's smallest? 500. So that's your smallest number. What's the next smallest? 510, 501, or 550? Well, 501 is just one more than 500, so that's second. What's your third from the bottom? 510. And your biggest number is 550. So that would be your fourth number. So if it asks you to order these least to greatest, it would be this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now, I'm not going to go over a whole lot of ordering decimals because we're going to be talking mostly about fractions. If you need to practice this more, you can go back to decimal lessons. We are going to be doing this, though. We're just going to be doing it with fractions, so you will get some practice. So I'm going to jump right into fractions. Let's say, now in the GED, they're probably going to give you about 5 numbers, is what I've seen. They're going to be mixed, fractions and decimals. But first, we're going to start off with just decimals and then just fractions to keep it simple. I'm only going to give you 3 numbers. Now, some people can look at this and tell what these are in their head. It's okay if you can, but I would suggest go ahead and working out to make sure you're right, just to check yourself. A lot of people can't work these in their head. So again, the easiest way that I know how to do these is by turning them into a decimal. Now, some people are taught to find the greatest common denominator of these 3 numbers. That is one way to do it. And that is the way I teach when you're adding and subtracting fractions. But when you have multiple fractions, the denominator gets so large that it gets difficult to work with. Just for an example, these 3 small numbers, the smallest number that these 3 will go into would be 120. And then you'd have to convert all 3 of these to have that denominator. I do not like that way. I think that's a waste of time. The way I'm going to teach you is much faster and much easier. So I say change these into decimals. So divide. 1, the top number, goes inside the bracket. 3 goes outside the bracket. Now, if you get these flip-flopped on the test, you'll know instantly that you're doing the wrong thing because you're going to end up with a whole number up here because 1 will go into 3 times. So you know that 1/3 isn't equal to 3. So the smaller number always goes in here if the smaller number is on top here. I've never seen them give you one of these with a improper fraction. They're all already reduced. So I wouldn't have to worry about the bigger number being on top on these specific problems. So how do you do this? How does 3 go into 1? Well, again, if you don't know how to do this, I'd go back and practice the decimal lessons. If you do know, then you know you add a decimal and a 0. When you add a decimal there, you immediately put a decimal up there. If you want, you can start with a 0 there. You don't have to. I'm telling you that 3 will not go into 1. 3 will, however, go into 10. So 3 goes into 10 3 times. Do your multiplying. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract. When you subtract, you ignore this decimal. You treat this like it's 10. So 10 minus 9 is 1. And you can either stop there or you can keep going. It depends on your problem. For these, I always go out at least 2 places. and then I see if I need to go out of third place. So you add a zero, another 0 here, extend your line, bring that 0 down, and again 3 is going to go into 10 3 times. And if you'll see, that's just going to be repeating over and over again. So if you want to know, this goes 3 3 3 3 on infinitely. So let's move on to the next number, 2/5. So 2 goes inside the bracket, 5 goes outside. 5 won't go into 2, so immediately you have to add a 0 and a decimal up here. 5 will go into 20 4 times, and that's even. So you're done. 3/8. 3 goes inside the bracket, it goes outside. Add a decimal and a 0, decimal up here. 8 goes into 30 3 times, which is 24. Subtract, you get 6. Extend your line, add a 0, bring that 0 down. 8 goes into 60 7 times, which is 56. Subtract, and then since you got a 4 down here, you can stop there. You don't really need to go again, but just to show you the finished problem, you can add another 0. It'll go into 40 evenly. You don't have to know that. It's just something I know. Now, if you're struggling with these right here, it's because you don't know your times tables well, or because you haven't practiced long division. I'm going to go pretty fast, so if this is too fast for you, you probably need to pause it, stop this video, and go back and practice your multiplication. That's the most important thing you can learn for the test, because that's something I forgot to mention. This is a no calculator question. So if you thought you were going to just punch these in on the calculator, you were wrong. This is the first part 1 of math GED. So now we've got our 3 decimals. So I would start by putting them top over bottom. 0.33, 0.4, 0.375. And again, the easiest way I know how to do this is to add zeros until it's even. So you need a 0 up there, which technically this would be a 3, but you don't need to know that for this one. You might, on a different problem where you have 2 numbers that are very close to each other, you might have to go out that third spot. But for this one, you know that 330 is the smallest number, so 1/3 is your smallest number. So if you were ordering these, 1/3 would be your smallest number. 0.375 is your next biggest, so 3/8 would be your next number. And you have to turn these back in fraction form. You can't turn them in like this. So make sure you keep track of which decimal goes with which fraction. 0.4 is 2/5. That's your largest number. So there they are from least to greatest. Now, hopefully you won't have to, but sometimes you might have to deal with negative numbers. So we're going to go over that. It's basically the same thing except backwards. So if you had negative 3/4, negative 1/2, and negative 5/8. So I would ignore the negatives until the end of the problem, but don't forget that they're there. So change this into a decimal. 3 divided by 4. Add your 0 and your decimal. 4 goes into 30 7 times, which is 28. Subtract 2. Add a 0. Bring that down. 4 goes into 20 5 times. If you know this by heart, you can go ahead and write that down, but I'm going to do it anyway. 1 divided by 2. Add your decimal and your 0. Oops, that doesn't go there. 2 goes into 10 5 times, which is 10. 5/8. Add your decimal and your 0. 8 goes into 50 6 times, which is 48. It goes into 20 twice. you want to go a third, it goes in 45 times. So here's the tricky part. If you just start ordering these least to greatest, you're probably going to get it wrong, because since they're negative, you actually have to do the opposite. Because if you remember, if you had a number line, there's your 0, 1, 2, 3. So obviously 2 is bigger than 1, 3 is bigger than 2. But when you go this way, -1 is actually larger than -2. And you can think about it, because you can think about it like it's your bank account. Would you rather have -$2 in your bank account or -$1? Well, I'd rather just have -1. So that's your larger number. So your smallest number on this number line is the number that's farthest to the left, which is -3. So since these are all negative, -0.75, -0.5, -0.625. Fill your zeros in. So that negative changes this completely. This is actually your smallest number instead of being your largest number, because it's negative. So 0.75 would be farther this way, so it's your smallest number. So that went with 3/4. So your smallest number is -3/4. Normally 625 would be bigger than 500, but since it's negative, that makes it smaller than 500. So your next smallest number is 5/8, -5/8. And then that leaves -1/2. So your numbers should go least to greatest this way, basically, because they're negative instead of going the other way. If they were positive, it would be 1/2, 5/8, and 3/4. So that would be least to greatest. But since they're negative, you just flip-flop everything. Okay. So we're going to start with some easy ones. So they just want these 5 fractions ordered from least to greatest. We just did 3/4, so if you look at your paper, you'll see that that was just 0.75. We just did 1/3. If you look at your notes, that was 0.33. We just did 1/2. That was 0.5. We haven't done 2/3 yet. Add a decimal, 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times, which is 18. And just like 1/3, 2/3 is going to keep repeating over and over again too. Just so you get the same thing every time. So we're going to stop there. And we haven't done 1/4 yet. Add your decimal and your 0. 4 goes into 10 twice. And then 0, 4 goes into 20 5 times. And if you had that memorized, that's good too. 1/4, some people say 1/4. The reason why they say 1/4 is because it's equal to 1/4. So now you can order them top over bottom. And if they're obvious like this, you don't have to waste your time, but they're probably not going to be this obvious. So you can see that 2 is your smallest number, 3 is your next biggest number, 5, 6, 7. So 1/4 would be your smallest number. And then I said 3, which is 1/3. 5, 1/2. 6, 2/3, and then 7 was 3/4. So that would be those 5 fractions, least to greatest. It's pretty easy. I want you to start off easy, but on the GED, it's probably not going to be that easy. So if you would, pause your video and see if you can do 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your own. and then I'll go over the answers with you. Okay, so let's see. This would have been, I think, 0.16. I might have to solve that one out. Let's do it in my head. Okay, so 0.83, 0.66, we just did that, 0.5, 0.33. So your smallest number is 1/6. And then 1/3, 1/2, 2/3, 5/6. 0.75, 5, just did that one, 0.83, 0.66. I'm going to do this just to make sure I'm right. 12 divided by, oops, that would have been wrong. 5 divided by 12 goes in there 4 times. Goes in there once. So that's probably far enough. 0.41. So smallest number is 4. So that's your smallest fraction. 5 looks like the next biggest. 6, 7, and 8. Looks like they already wrote an answer in here. No, that doesn't look like that goes there. That looks like a misprint. I didn't notice that because 1/5 isn't even in this row. We'll just write over the top of that. So 5 and 7. Oops, forgot my decimal. 5/14. We'll go ahead and do that. 3, which would be 42, I think. Let's see, that's going to be, I think, 7. Let me try it. 70. Nope, it's too big. That's too big. I don't know what I'm thinking. 5 should be 70. We'll stop there. And I know you don't have 14s on your times tables. You're going to have to do those off to the side. Don't be like me and try to do them in your head. Let's see. I can use my information over here. I knew that 5 times 14 is 70. So if I do one more, that'll probably be close enough, which would be 84. And then 3 times 14 was 42, so one more would be 56. So 4. 2/7. And then 1/2. Okay, so the smallest number is 2/7. So I don't know why this 1/5 is here. Then 3 is their next biggest number. Then 5 and 5, 7. Remember, add a 0. So obviously 57 is bigger than 50. So 1/2 is next, and then 4/7. And our biggest number is 6, which is 9/14. I'm just going to speed up the video and go ahead and let you check these on your own. The second sheet has answers. Now, comparing fractions with decimals. Same thing. You just have to deal with two numbers. You do have to know what these mean, though. Remember, the open end always goes towards the larger number. So this is your greater than symbol, your less than symbol, or your equal than symbol. So divide your 7 by 8. Add your decimal. Goes in there 8 times. 6. Another 0. That's 7. So should be obvious. 95 is bigger than 87. So the open end goes towards the 95. I'll do one more of those with you, and I'm going to save this sheet for your own practice. 1/5. 5 goes into 10 2 times. So if you want to even these out, you can add a 0. Sorry about that. 20 is bigger than 5, so 1/5 is your larger number. There's a whole sheet of these for you to practice with answers on the second sheet. We're going to do a couple negatives. So you got -2/5. We just did that. No, we did 1/5. So 5 goes into 20 4 times. So it's going to be -0.4 though. You remember you've got to reverse everything. So normally 0.4 would be larger than 0.3, but since they're both negative, the 0.4 is smaller than the 0.3. So the 0.3 is the larger number. -1/3. If you look back at your notes, sorry about that, I keep moving it up too far. Remember that 1/3 was 0.333. So, which one? But it's negative. So normally 0.333 would be larger than -0.283. So you reverse that. So this one is closer to 0. So that one is your larger number. Now this sheet has negatives and positives mixed up. So make sure you look and see if it's positive or negative before you answer these. And the answers are on the second sheet of that. Now this might be a little fuzzy for you because I had to blow it up. This is going to be practicing fractions again. I don't have an answer sheet to this. It didn't come with one. This is going to be practicing decimals again. If you want, you can do these by hand without a calculator, and then you can check them with a calculator. And then you should be able to know how to order decimals. I'm just going to go over a few of these because this is how it's going to appear on the GED. So I'm going to rewrite these just so you can see them better. That first fraction is 1/4. And I'm down here on number 3, part A. And this actually tells you change any fraction to decimal first, dividing top by the bottom using a calculator, but you don't get a calculator on the GED, so then rewrite them in order, starting with the smallest. So 1/4, we did that earlier. Same thing as 1/4. So it's 0.25. And then you got 0.4, and then 3/4, I think. So it goes in there 7 times. Put that in the wrong spot. It goes in there 5 times, which is why they call that 3/4. So we've got 0.25, 0.4, 0.75, and 0.3. So even those out. 0.25 is your smallest, so that's going to be your smallest number. 30 is your next biggest, so 0.3. 0.3 if you want to keep it like that. 4 is your next biggest number, so 0.4. And then 0.75 is your largest, if that is 3/4. Sorry about the fuzziness. So 3/4 would be your largest number. So if you can read these, try your best to do these. You don't have to do these down here because they have percents mixed in. So you can do these 3 sections. If you just want to skip to just this section, you can. Okay, that is the end of the video.